Hello everyone. It's 6 p.m. We are going to start with our class that is the basic class, but it is the very important topic that is joints, classification of joints. We are going to study the anatomy and classification of joints. Give me a second. All right. I'm going to make it full screen for you so that you can see all the details. I'm Dr. Rohini. I'm going to talk about the classification of joints and the different types of joint based on various criteria. So first of all, introduction to joint. What do you call a joint? Joint is actually a junction between two or more bones. So when two or more bones or cartilages are kept together and it is movable or may not be movable, it is going to permit some sort of movement, and that is known as joint. Okay. So now there are so many joints in our body. There is one exception of a bone, that is hyoid bone. This does not form joint with anything. There is no other bone in the vicinity. It does not form any joint. So it is neither connected through cartilage nor through the ligament. So it is not forming a joint with anything else. We have about 230 joints in our body, and we have around 600 plus muscles. And you can just imagine how many movable joints are there, how many fibrous type of joints are there which are not movable at all. And there are some joints which are cartilaginous joints which are slightly movable. So based on various criteria, let's classify them first. Now, what is the function of the joint, first of all? Function of the joint is, see, if the joint was not there, we wouldn't have been able to move around, sit on any place or bend our, back, sit, do all these sort of work that we do daily. We would not be able to do. So the function of the joint is mainly to give flexibility so that you can do movement, and then that is movement at various places, and then it also acts like a place where bone growth is possible. Okay, so now it also holds the skeleton together. Now you know that it is not just single bone that is forming the joint. I told you minimum two bones are required to form the joint, and when so many bones are there, it forms a skeletal system. The skeletal system is holding all the things together. Now, coming to the classification of joint, we have various sort of classifications. Now, joints are classified based on their structure and based on their function. Now, based on the structure is how it is the bones are connected to each other, while functional classification is completely dependent on the degree of movement. What is function, that is how it moves, and what is the range of movement, all that is considered. Based on that, the functional classification is done. Okay, this particular slide shows you the three types of joints. You have a fibrous type of joint, that is fixed type of joint. You have a cartilaginous joint, that is slightly movable. And then you have synovial joint, which is freely movable. Now, fibrous type of joint has between the two bones, the fibrous tissue is present. So the fibrous tissue holds them together. Now, you know that there are some joints in our cranial bones which are supposed to be held in place and not be movable at all. So such joints are called fixed joints or fibrous joints. Now we have example as the sutures. The first category is sutures. Now in sutures, what happens? Now the bones are held together and between them, there is a sutural line. So sutural lines, there are various type of sutures. You have a lambdoid suture and you have a coronal suture, you have sagittal suture. All these are examples of sutures. Now you can see here also, there is plain type, there is squamous type, serrate type, dentate type, and shindylisis. What is plain type of suture? When we say plain type, I mean to say that there is no serrated edge or there is no demarcation at all to show that there are two bones that is connected to each other. So this is simply plain edged surface. So this is one type of joint which is seen in the squamous part of the temporal bone articulating with the parietal bone. Next one, squamous type, is again the similar type of sutural end. And then you have serrated type. Serrated type, you can see between the two parietal bones. So between the two parietal bones, there is a serrated edge, like a zigzag. Okay. So you can see that there is a serrated edge, and that forms the serrated type of suture. Then you have one more type that is called dentate type. Dentate is, the name itself tells you, it is something like a tooth. Okay, something like tooth, dentate type, and that gives you a tooth type of edged surface. And then another one is shindylisis. This is between the vomer and the small portion of the ethmoid bone. So between the vomer and the ethmoid bone, and then you can see this shindylisis type of joint. So these are the various types of sutures that you can see in the fibrous or fixed type of joint. Next, you see one more type that is called the gomphosis. Okay, the name itself doesn't give you any hint. The gomphosis is between the socket and the tooth itself. The tooth sits inside the socket and it forms the joint. And you know that it is not supposed to move. Tooth is not supposed to move in its socket. So this comes under the category of fixed type of joint. So you can see that the gomphosis also is listed under fixed type of joints. And then another one is syndesmosis. What does this give you idea? Syndesmosis is, what does this give you idea? Give you an idea. 1 second. Okay, what does syndesmosis give you an idea? Syndesmosis is between the two bones. The synchronized syndesmosis is something together. So syndesmosis is between the two bones. There is a connection between two bones. It could be the tibia fibula or it could be radius and ulna. So these are some of the bones that is held together, and that is known as syndesmosis. Okay. We don't have any queries or anything. Okay, let's move ahead. Next one is cartilaginous type. Cartilaginous type is slightly better, that is little movable. So it comes under the category of slightly movable joint, that is cartilaginous type of joint. Now here cartilage, there are three types of cartilage. There is elastic cartilage, there is hyaline cartilage, and white fibrocartilage. The hyaline cartilage, which is blue cartilage, the hyalo means blue cartilage, is also called the articular cartilage. That means it covers the ends of the bones. So in your books, you must have seen exclusively all these joints are marked or shaded in blue color. That is the hyaline cartilage. So if it is only hyaline cartilage, then it comes under the category of primary cartilaginous joints. Okay, primary cartilaginous joints will have hyaline cartilage at the edges, and that is known as articular cartilage. And such type of joints are called synchondrosis. What do you mean by chondro? Chondro is the cartilage. Okay. So chondrocytes are called, chondrocytes are nothing but cartilaginous cells. And synchondrosis is nothing but the primary cartilaginous joint. Okay. So now next one, there is this secondary cartilaginous joint. Secondary cartilaginous joints are most of the time midline joints. Like you have symphysis menta you have, and then you also have pubic symphysis. All these are nothing but the secondary cartilaginous joints, which are symphysis. Here there are two types of joints. One is the hyaline cartilage, and then in the center it is held together by another type of white fibrocartilage. Now here you can remember it as secondary for two. Okay. So there is hyaline and in between white fibrocartilage. So this is one of the important and strong type of joints, that is secondary cartilaginous joints. Next you have synovial or freely movable type of joint. So synovial joints are freely movable, and there is a reason for that, because they are present within the joint cavity. There is a joint cavity, and that's what makes it a synovial joint. And they are freely movable. The bones are freely movable. Joint cavity is going to allow the movement of the bones freely. And there are variety of joints in this category. You have plain type, you have hinge type, pivot type, bicondylar, ellipsoid, saddle, and the ball and socket type of joint. The first one we'll see the plain type of joint. The plain type of joint, the name itself indicates you that two bones are held together and there is just plain sliding and gliding type of movement, and that is known as plain type of joint. Next one is hinge type of joint. In hinge type of joint, there is something like door hinges, and you know that there are various movements in the joints. There is flexion, there is extension, there is adduction, abduction, there is rotation, and also circumduction. Okay, so now plain type of movements will have just sliding and gliding type of movements. There is no flexion, extension, all these. It is just the gliding type of movement. Next, in hinge type of joints, you can see there is a flexion as well as the extension. So flexion, extension is seen. So example, you can give it as the ankle joint. You can give the example of elbow joint. It just moves like flex and then extend. That is hinge type of joint, just like hinges of the door. Next one is pivot type of joint. Pivot type of joints are something that has an axis and there is something else that rotates. Okay, so such joints are seen between the radius and ulna. That is superior radio-ulnar joints are pivot type of joint. So that is pivot type. Next, you have bicondylar joint. Bicondylar joints are the ones which have got condyles. So it is again the knee joint. Knee joint can be considered at two different categories. One is the synovial type, the other one is the hinge type. So both of them, the hinge type and the synovial type, this one bicondylar type, knee joint can come as an example. Okay, so why hinge joint? Because knee you can do flexion and extension. And why bicondylar? Because there are condyles present on the lower end of the femur, and that forms a joint with the upper part of the tibia. So it is bicondylar also. So this is one important objective type of question that can be asked. Knee joint is both hinge type of joint as well as bicondylar type of joint. Next, you have ellipsoid joint. It is elliptical type of joint, and the elliptical joint is found in the wrist joint. Wrist joint is ellipsoid type of joint. Next one is saddle or sella type of joint, which is again the first carpometacarpal joint. Now in the fingers, when you stretch your hand, you can see there is wrist bones, that is carpal bones. Then you have all these metacarpals, and then you have the phalanges. Phalanges, there are two here. The thumb has two, and these have got three here. Okay, all the other fingers have got three except the thumb, which has got two. Now here also they bend at these small. These are considered to be small bones. And here also they bend. What are these? They are interphalangeal joints. So what kind of movement they produce? They produce only one directional, that is unidirectional movement. And they come under the hinge type of joint. So now this one we were talking about, the sixth one, that is saddle or stellar type of joint, that is between the thumb, that is the metacarpal, and carpometacarpal joint. This is the carpal and this is the metacarpal. Now you know that near the thumb side you have both scaphoid and triquetrum. These together they form this joint with the metacarpal, first metacarpal, and this is known as the saddle type of joint. Next, you have ball and socket type of joint. Ball and socket type of joint is a multi-axial type of joint where all the movements are possible. You have this flexion, extension, you have circumduction, rotation, all this, adduction, abduction. So the good example would be the shoulder joint and the hip joint. Okay, let's see who has we have many students who have messaged, and thank you. I hope you all understand and you'll be able to relate these things to your clinical aspects, because most of the time the questions that is asked is for example, the Gomphosis. Just by looking at the name Gomphosis, it is very difficult to know what they're talking about. Gomphosis comes under the category of fixed type of joints. So it is very important that you remember this particular chart or the PPT of classification. And synovial joints, what are the features? When do you call it a synovial type of joint? It is very important to know all this. So we have okay. Right, 1 second. Okay, someone, Aman, you are talking about spondylosis. Spondylosis is a joint which is between the there is a small spike-like thing. I'll show you in the diagram, with the diagram, that is between the vomer and the spine of the sphenoid. The spine of the sphenoid and the vomer, it forms a joint that is called spondylosis. Okay, I'll show it to you. And it is present in the cranial fossa, you can see. Okay, you can see in the cranial fossa. In the norma basalis, you can see it properly. That is spondylosis. I'll show you that with the diagram. We were talking about the ball and socket type of joint. The ball and socket type of joint, I told you the examples are both the hip joint as well as the shoulder joint. You can, of them you can give example. Why? Because you have ball and socket, you have a humerus, and that has a socket. The scapula has a socket and it articulates with the socket in the scapula, that is called the glenoid cavity of the scapula, and they form this ball and socket type of joint, and it has a wide range of movement. So the wide range of movement of shoulder joint is better compared to the hip joint. Okay, we'll move on to the next one. So now this has more examples and more pictures, more pictures to explain the same thing what I showed you in the joint. Now, first of all, we were talking about the fibrous joints. Let's see the different fibrous joints. Now, we were talking about the sutures first. You can also call this as synostosis. They're found between the bones. Now you have this frontal bone here, you have parietal, you have squamous part of the temporal, you have occipital bone. So all these things, whatever is holding these two bones, are called sutures. Okay, so depending on what kind of edge they have got, they can be categorized as dentate type or serrate type, all these plane type. All these categories are given depending on what is the type of edge they possess. Now you can see there is a junction where there is a frontal bone, parietal bone, the squamous part of the temporal bone, and greater wing of the sphenoid bone meets, and that point here you can see it is a edge-shaped one. So this is one important landmark that is called the pterion. Pterion is one important landmark where there are sutures that meet at this point, and the suture looks like a edge-shaped structure. So these are called the sutures, and that point landmark is known as pterion. And similarly, you have one more here at the back, okay, where the parietal, occipital, and the squamous part of the temporal meets, and that point is known as asterion. So there is a clinical aspect we can discuss with the pterion and the asterion, which we will do it on a different day. So now here, for that you have to subscribe, and you can get more of the classes, more in detail, more in depth of all the clinical aspects, and thoroughly you will have a view of what exactly you can look for in anatomy classes. Okay, so that is about the sutures. See, this is the plain type of suture. This is overlapped squamous suture, and serrated edged suture is this one. And then there is dentate type, which looks like tooth. That's why dento. Okay. And we had Aman Singh, who was talking about what is shindilasis. Aman, this is shindilasis. You have a wedge-shaped structure, and that squamous part of the rostrum of the sphenoid bone. Here it has a small peg-like thing, and that sits in the ala of the vomer. Okay, now this type of joint is known as shindilasis. It's a very important question, very, very important question. The shindilasis and Gomphosis are the ones which are always asked from this section. Okay, now coming to the Gomphosis, I told you it is between the tooth and the socket. Next one, tibiofibular joint. This one, lower tibiofibular, is held by a small connection that is known as syndesmosis. Like anything that says syn is together, synchronized, or symphysis. Anything that says syn is together. So that you can see here between the tibiofibular joint. So these are some of the variety of sutures. Okay, this one is syndesmosis. Here you can see the connection between the tibia and the fibula. You have many examples actually. You can give more than one example. You can keep 2-3 in mind, and again it depends on whether they are going to ask the example and then they are going to ask what type of joint it is, or they are going to ask you to pick one from the list. Depends on the question. So now here you have intraosseous radioulnar joint, and in the picture you can see tibiofibular joint. Okay, so that is connecting the two bones through intraosseous connection. Now this is the Gomphosis we were talking about. So you can see the root of the tooth is attached to the socket. With the alveolar, a ligament is present here that is called periodontal ligament. Okay, that holds the tooth in its place so that it doesn't move. Okay, so now all these joints, whatever we discussed, they do not move, and they are restricted to movement. It is fixed in one place, and hence they are called fixed joints or the fibrous joints. Let's move on to the cartilaginous type of joints. Cartilaginous type of joints, I mentioned that there are two types. One is the primary cartilaginous and the other one is the secondary cartilaginous. The primary cartilaginous joint has only one type of cartilage, that is hyaline cartilage. Now here you have hyaline cartilage connecting the two bony ends. Then you have secondary cartilaginous joints, which has, of course, the hyaline cartilages as the articular cartilage, and in between them, there is also a piece of white fibrocartilage. Now, what is the difference between hyaline, elastic, and white fibrocartilage? Now, you know that the hyaline cartilage got its name because of the color hyalo or blue color. The matrix is bluish in color because it takes up the stain hematoxylin. That's why it reflects blue color. And then you have another type of cartilage, that is white fibrocartilage, which has got a lot of collagen fibers in the matrix, and the chondrocytes are arranged in a row, unlike the hyaline cartilage where the chondrocytes are present in cell nest. They have a cell nest which has got 4 to 5 cells arranged like eggs that are present in a nest. So that's why it is called cell nest. And this kind of arrangement you can see in the hyaline cartilage. And white fibrocartilage, you can see the cells arranged in a row. So that is what is present in the secondary cartilaginous joint. Both these type of cartilages are seen. So now where do we find primary cartilaginous joints? Now primary cartilaginous joints are here you can see them between the first strip. So you can see there is this first strip. Okay. So now you can see the first strip. You can't see the attachment of clavicle. Clavicle is not shown in this picture. In this one, it is shown. To the manubrium, you will have two, facets. You have a facet for the clavicle, and you have an articular facet for the first strip. Now here, this blue color thing that is depicted is nothing but the hyaline. And these joints are immovable, and mostly they are temporary in nature, because later on what happens after certain age, they fuse and completely this turns into a bony structure. So this may or may not happen, and in some people it may not happen, and it may still remain as a cartilaginous joint itself. Now examples in human, you can give them as first strip and the manubrium sterni, or in this picture, you can see sternum. This is the manubrium part. This is the body of the sternum. And this is the first strip. So this is an example for primary cartilaginous joint. And you can also see the joint between the epiphysis and diaphysis of growing long bone. Now you know that the growing any long bone will have an end that is called the epiphysis. And then there is a shaft that is called the diaphysis. And there will be a small cartilaginous plate, and that is separating the epiphysis from the diaphysis during the growing years. And later on, that disappears, and it allows the epiphysis to join the diaphysis. And that completes the growth of the bone, or complete ossification takes place there. And that bone no longer grows, and the growth is stopped at that age. And this kind of plate that is present is also an example for primary cartilaginous joint. So these examples you can give for primary cartilaginous joints. So you should remember epiphyseal plate is an example for primary cartilaginous joint. Okay, we have thank you, Venkatesh, for liking. And I have Shane, I have Yogesh, Swaroop, Yogesh, many viewers who have liked this PPT. You can get more information when you subscribe to Unacademy classes. A lot of clinical based questions are discussed, a lot of MCQs are discussed. So everything you can have access to when you subscribe to Okay, now coming to the secondary cartilaginous type of joint. Secondary cartilaginous type of joints, I told you, they are mostly the ones which are present in the midline. Like I told you, the two sides of the mandible, the right and left side, they meet at a midline, that is called symphysis. It is called symphysis menti. And then you also have this symphysis pubis, and between the vertebral bodies you have disc, and that is called intervertebral disc. That is also an example for secondary cartilaginous joint. And manubriosternal joint, so between the manubrium part of the sternum and body of the sternum, you have a joint that is called manubriosternal joint, that is also made up of secondary cartilaginous joint. So what is secondary cartilaginous? You have hyaline cartilage plates, and then in between you have a small disc of white fibrocartilage. In this intervertebral disc, you can see it very clearly. You can see white fibrocartilage in between, and then you can see hyaline cartilage and hyaline cartilage, which is given in blue color. So hyaline, that name itself is very interesting, right? Why do we call that hyalo? It is blue in color because of the staining properties. And also the matrix looks very glossy. Okay, it has got the same refractive index as the glass. So it has a glossy appearance, and the fibers and the cells and the fibers are actually there present in the matrix, but it is not seen because of the same refractive index. And that's why, since it looks glossy and glass-like, it is called hyaline cartilage. And because of the blue color, the name is given. Okay, so this is about secondary cartilaginous joints. So symphysis menti is also mentioned here. So all this you have to remember. Usually secondary cartilaginous joint, they can, least expected one they can give you. They may simply, you may be talking about intervertebral disc. Oh, that is very important because, many things are discussed with this. But you may end up writing an answer on symphysis menti, which you would wonder what it is, whether it is a primary or a secondary cartilaginous joint. So I suggest you to go through the examples really well, and you can make a list of joints, and then you can categorize them yourself. Okay, next, coming to the synovial type of joints. Synovial type of joint. See, there is a criteria for a joint to be a synovial joint. Why do you call it a synovial joint? Of course, there should be some lubrication inside the joint, and the lubrication comes from the synovial fluid, which is secreted by the membrane that is lining the joint. And this joint has got a enclosed structure, and that is known as fibrous capsule. So the fibrous capsule encloses the joint cavity, and then within the joint cavity there is this lining of membrane, and then you have this fluid, the synovial fluid, that is secreted. So now here again it depends on whether it is a simple type of joint or a compound type or a complex type of joint. Now all the simple joints will not have any partition between them. You can see that there is joint cavity and there are two bones, and the articular cartilage also you can see, which is hyaline cartilage, and then there is this movement within the joint. And then here you can see there is a slight partition here. There is an articular disc, and then there is a compound joint. In this one, you can see there is an articular disc that is separating the two. And then there is here upper compartment, lower compartment. So again, it depends. Now there are 3 bones involved in this, and there are 2 bones involved in this, but there is an articular disc that is separating. One good example I can give you is of the TM joint, temporomandibular joint. So temporomandibular joint has got an articular disc. So wherever you hear the menisci, the articular disc, you should remember that these are the ones which are made up of white fibrocartilage. So these white fibrocartilage, they have one characteristic feature, that is they do not have perichondrium. Perichondrium is where the new cells are produced, new chondrocytes are produced. It is not present. So what happens? It is not regenerative. It cannot regenerate on its own, and new cells cannot be laid. And then what happens to the, such a disc? Such a disc can get wear and tear, and then it can degenerate, and that can result in exposure of the articular surfaces. Okay, so such a thing can happen in a TM joint, in the knee joint, where there is this menisci and articular disc. Okay. So now here you can see there are characteristic features. You have this the periosteum covering on the bone. Okay, to the periosteum covering, you have the capsule, fibrous capsule, and fibrous capsule together with the lining membrane, that is synovial membrane, you call them as articular capsule. So please remember, articular capsule is fibrous capsule plus the lining membrane. Now here you can see the hyaline cartilage and see the joint cavity. Joint cavity will be filled with synovial fluid that is secreted by the synovial membrane. So now articular surfaces are covered by thin plate of hyaline cartilage is given as the first point, and then joint cavity is enveloped by articular capsule. It consists of the outer fibrous and the inner synovial membrane. Together you can call it as articular capsule. Now here the cavity of the joint is lined everywhere. You can see that it is lined everywhere except the places where the articular cartilage is present. Okay, synovial membrane is all over the place except at the edges of the bone, which is covered by articular cartilage. That is one important thing to remember. And this joint cavity is filled with synovial fluid, which has the nutrition that it provides to the joint for a smooth mobility, and it also lubricates the articular surfaces. And some of the joint cavity is complete or incompletely divided by articular disc or menisci. I was talking about this only. The articular disc or menisci, if it divides, then it comes under the category of compound joint or the complex type of joint. If it is divided by menisci, and then it comes under the category of compound joint. If there is a articular disc that is dividing the joint, then it becomes a complex joint. Okay, now let's look at some of the synovial joints we were listing. The first one we were talking about is the plane joint, right? The plane joint, and then we talked about the hinged joint, pivot, condylar, etc. Okay, let's look at the plane joint first. Now here you can see the articular surfaces are more or less flat in nature. So now here you can see those carpal bones. So you can see so many intercarpal joints. Okay. So in the wrist, you have all these carpal bones. How many carpal bones are there? There are 4 plus 4 carpal bones. Okay, you can remember all these carpal bones with the mnemonic also. Okay. That is the mnemonic. She looks too pretty. Try to catch her. Okay, so now there is a scaphoid, lunate, triquetrum, trapezium. You have hamate, capitate, pisiform. All these are some of the carpal bones. The surfaces that face them with each other is going to form this kind of joint, that is intercarpal joint. So it's an example for plane type of joint. Similarly, in the foot also you have tarsal bones. Tarsal bones, they form the plane joint. And then you have articular process of adjacent vertebrae. I'm not talking about the vertebral bodies. Vertebral bodies are separated by the disc. So that is a different type of category that comes under the category of secondary cartilaginous joint. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the articular process of the adjacent vertebrae. So that is again plane surface. So it is a plane joint. Next one is hinge type of joint. When we say hinge, the name itself should give you a hint. Okay, hinge is again door, hinges of the door, you should remember. Hinges of the door can, give you two movements. One is flexion, another one is extension, just like open and close. Okay, so this type of joint permits one type of movement. Only in one plane it moves. So when we say one plane, it is known as uniaxial type. Uniaxial is two movements, that is flexion and extension. Biaxial will be four movements and multiaxial will be more than four movements. Now uniaxial, flexion, extension. Biaxial, you can include flexion, extension, adduction and abduction. And multiaxial, you can include all the four which I mentioned now, plus you can also include the rotation, circumduction. So when we categorize the joints depending on their mobility, we can call them uniaxial type of joint, biaxial type, or the multiaxial type. For example, the shoulder joint is a multiaxial type of joint. So now here these joints, now they have strong collateral ligaments which supports them. What is collateral? Collateral is on the sides, lateral. So it is present on both the sides. So collateral ligaments are there to protect the joint and bring about the movements. Now here, it also prevents other movements, other unnecessary jerky movements it prevents. Now, two examples you can give. One is of the elbow joint. The other one is knee joint. I told you knee joint can be considered here in the hinge joint as well as the bicondylar type of joint. And ankle joint also comes under the hinge type of joint. So what is the movement that you can do in the ankle joint? You can do two types of movement. That is dorsiflexion and plantar flexion. There is no extension. So you can do downward movement like a ballet dancer. That is called plantar flexion. Or you can lift your foot upwards towards your front side of your tibia and fibula. That is called the dorsiflexion. So dorsiflexion and plantar flexion, when you do such a movement, such movements occur at ankle joint. And that's an example for hinge joint. So below the ankle joint, you have one more joint that is called subtalar joint. Subtalar joint is below the ankle joint. Ankle joint has three bones that holds together to form the ankle joint. That is also called talocrural joint. So that is talus and the tibia and the fibula. Together they form talocrural joint or the ankle joint. Below the ankle joint, you have subtalar joint where you have one more action, that is inversion and eversion. So we are talking about ankle joint, which is a hinge joint, which produces only the flexion and the extension. Since in the ankle joint, you don't have extension, you call it as dorsiflexion, plantar flexion. Next one is pivot type of joint. What is pivot type of joint? Here you have a concavity where another bone fits into it and you have some sort of a rotatory movement. And both of them are secured in place by ligaments. In this case, you can see the radius and ulna that is secured by annular ligament. So you can see it goes around them and within the joint cavity, it produces the movements. So what kind of movement we produce at the superior and inferior radioulnar joints? You can move the wrist in supination and you can move it in the pronation. Supination is facing the palm upwards. Pronation is facing the palm downwards like promise. So you remember the promise for pronation. Supination is facing the palm upwards towards the sun. That is supination. So now here you have movement that is limited to the rotation around the central axis. So now movement is again here it limited, not like ball and socket joint where there is wide range of movement. Here the movement is very much restricted because there is this half concavity. It is not a complete concavity where it can rotate. It is only a half concavity. So there is only half movement. Now examples you can give. atlantoaxial joint and radius and ulna between them. You can give the example of superior radioulnar joint. Now, what is atlantoaxial joint do? Now, between the atlas and the axis, there is a joint. That is, there is a small process called the odontoid process that fits into the ring-shaped atlas vertebrae, and that produces movements where you can do this action. You can turn your head side to side as if you are saying no. So you remember N for no, A and A. N, A, A, you remember. Like just like na. Okay, na. N, A, na. So that will be your no. Okay. So the turning of the head in right and left direction is the atlantoaxial joint action. So that also comes under pivot type of joint. So if you look at the joint and you can see the bones articulating, you'll be able to make out what kind of movements it can produce. Next one is condylar joint. Condylar joint, I told you that there is a articular disc. Articular disc divides this joint cavity into upper and lower compartments. And there is this condylar type of projection in the mandible. There is a coronoid projection and a condylar projection. And condylar projection forms a joint with the fossa, that is called mandibular fossa of the temporal bone. And this joint is an example for condylar joint. So TM joint, temporomandibular joint, is an example for condylar joint. And so is the knee joint. Knee joint also comes under the condylar type of joint. They permit movement in two directions. So that's why this is condylar type of joint. Next one is ellipsoid joint, elliptical. So if you look at wrist, you'll make out that your wrist is not straight, it is little elliptical because of the uneven surface of these carpal bones. Okay, the carpal bones, they form joint with the lower end of the radius and the ulna, and that is known as the wrist joint. So wrist joint is an example for elliptical surfaced area, that is ellipsoid joint. Next, there is also another example, that is atlanto-occipital joint. And there is metacarpophalangeal joint, metatarsophalangeal joint. Metacarpo is, the metacarpals are the one which form your palm. Palm area is metacarpals. And they form a joint with all these bones in the fingers. And that is called metacarpophalangeal joint. What is this one? This is carpometacarpal. This is metacarpophalangeal. Okay. So that is ellipsoid in type, and it is an example for ellipsoid joint. Yes. Next, you can see the saddle type of joint. Saddle, you can also call this as cellar joint. Saddle or cellar joint, you can say. So saddle or cellar type of joint is an example. You can take this as the example, that is between the trapezium and the first metacarpal bone. It's a very, very important question. This is between the trapezium and the first metacarpal, that is the thumb. So this has a wide range of movement. You know that it can produce flexion, extension, adduction, abduction, and also you can count. That action is known as opposition. So you can, the fingers touch, the tips of fingers are touched with each other, and that action is called opposition. So you can do opposition. So all this movement you can produce, and that is from the joint, that is saddle or cellar type of joint. Next, you have ball and socket type of joint. Ball and socket type of joint, you can say there is this head of the femur which articulates with the acetabular socket. And acetabular socket, actually it looks like complete socket, but it is not a complete socket. There is a deficit or a deficient area in the lower aspect. So that is actually compensated because of a small piece of cartilage that is called acetabular labrum. Acetabular labrum, like a plaster, it holds on the lower part of the acetabulum, and it makes up for the deficient part in the socket. So this is called the hip joint. And hip joint usually, even though that socket is covered by a transverse acetabular ligament, and labrum is present and also the ligament, and there are high chances that hip joint, when it dislocates inferiorly and posteriorly. So inferior dislocation and posterior dislocations are very common in hip joint. So now this is a multi-axial type of joint, just like the shoulder joint, but it is its movements are restricted. That is, flexion is restricted because of the presence of the abdomen. But in the shoulder, there is wide range of movement. You must have seen all these cricketers, especially the bowlers, how well they can swing their arm and they can throw the ball. So that is because of the wide range of movement. And wide range of movement is produced by say group of muscles which are present around the joint and which bring about various movements, like flexion is brought about by some muscles, extension by some group of muscles. And similarly, there are some muscles which just stabilize the joint. They are called fixators. You have prime movers, you have antagonists, you have fixators. All these are group of muscles which come and do different actions when the joint is moving. Now here you can see that there is a deficiency in the lower part of the socket, and that is compensated because of the acetabular labrum and also the transverse acetabular ligament. Now here you know that it produces all sort of movements in all different planes, and you can see that there is rotational movement is especially very important when we talk about ball and socket type of joint. Rotation movements like within the central axis, it is possible. So wide range of movement like rotation and circumduction is possible with the ball and socket type of joints. Now you can give the example of hip joint, shoulder joint. You can give, these two are the ones which are you know better asked, and you can also give the joint between the incus and the stapedius, two small ear ossicles. Those also you can give as the example. But this is again debatable question. So shoulder and the hip joint is a good example for ball and socket type of joint. Next, coming to the functional type of joints. Okay. Now, coming to the functional type of classification, we have that was all based on the structure. So that was structural classification. Coming to the functional type of classification, how many bones are involved, what is the range of movement, what is the type of movement, depending on that, you can classify the joints as synarthrosis, which is nothing but the first type of classification, that is fibrous or a fixed type of joint. Next one, amphiarthrosis. You know that amphibian is both it can stay in the water as well as on the ground. So amphi is not completely movable, not completely stationary. So it is slightly movable. Slightly movable, they permit slight mobility. And this kind of joints are called amphiarthrosis. That's how it gets its name, amphibian. The two bone surfaces at the joint are covered by hyaline cartilage and joined by strands of white fibrocartilage. And example you can give as secondary cartilaginous joints. So now you can categorize this under secondary cartilaginous joint, but we are excluding the primary cartilaginous joint here because this category, this type of classification doesn't include primary. Next one is diarthrosis. Diarthrosis is something that permit variety of movement. Only the synovial joints are considered to be diarthrotic or diarthrodial type of joints. So this is again the functional type of classification, which is not as popular as the structural classification. So usually when some question is asked, structural classification is what is kept in mind. So this is another one, the classification according to number of articulating bones, whether you have a simple joint with two articulation surfaces, that is shoulder joint, hip joint, any joint which has just two bones in articulation, you can give. Compound joint, two or more bones. But other than that, there is no other, partition between them. Like articular disc is not there, menisci is not there. Such things are called the compound type of joints. But complex type of joint will have a menisci or an articular disc. So when there are more than two bones, you call it compound. When the two bones have got some partition between them and there is different type of movement happening in the upper compartment, there is different happening in the lower compartment, or it could be the same movement which is happening in this joint. Such joints come under the category of complex joints. Now just look at the parts of the joint. Now synovial joint, you can see the fibrous capsule, you can identify the ligaments which hold these bones during the movement and reinforcing ligaments, you can see them. Synovial membrane lining, you can see within the joint cavity. You can see articular cartilage, you can see. And then articular disc. Sometimes you can see in this particular one, you cannot see. And there are various fatty pads, they are present around the joint cavity sometimes. And these are present to prevent any friction of the tendon over the bony edge or between the moving joints. So to prevent that, you have fatty pads. And similarly, there are bursae also. Bursae are nothing but pockets filled with synovial fluid. Their function is also similar to the fatty pads, just to reduce any friction. So this is how the bursae are placed between the tendons. You can see the tendon, and especially in the shoulder joint, you can see the long head of the biceps tendon. It crosses the shoulder. Now you can see the long head of biceps comes from the supraglenoid tubercle of the scapula, and it goes over the joint cavity, and it is also seen in the intertubercular sulcus. So what happens here is it is crossing two joints. It is not only crossing the shoulder joint, it is also crossing the elbow joint. So it crosses two joints, and always the action is considered or takes place better where there is insertion, not where there is origin. So biceps brachii, you can call it as a weak flexor of the shoulder joint and a strong flexor of the elbow joint. So what if someone asks you what is the action of biceps brachii? You should say flexion of the elbow joint. So shoulder joint flexion is also possible because it crosses this joint also, but it is a very, very weak flexor. And it is also an accessory muscle for supination. Okay, along with the supinator muscle. Now here there is one important clinical condition we can list, that is impingement syndrome. Impingement syndrome happens whenever there is a tendon that crosses the joint, gets pinched between the moving bones. Okay, now this is one classical example where the biceps tendon can get pinched, okay, between the moving bones. That is the socket of the scapula, and you can see the head of the humerus. So here, since it crosses, even though there are so many bursae, to prevent the tendon from getting injured, there are chances that it can have the tendon injured, and that is the impingement syndrome. And impingement syndrome can result in frozen shoulder, that is inability to move the shoulder. So that is also one criteria that you need to remember. So these are some of the parts of the joint. Now here you can see there is lining of hyaline cartilage. Here also there is lining of hyaline cartilage. There is a fibrous capsule. And fibrous capsule in the shoulder joint is very lax. That means it is very loose. So that is the reason. It is just like wearing a very loose, t-shirt or a dress. So inside that you can feel free to move your joints. But if you wear a very tight clothing, then it becomes very difficult to move. So similarly here also, the fibrous capsule, how tightly it is held. So that decides whether the joint is freely movable or there is a restricted movement. I'm talking only about the synovial joints because the fibrous capsule is a feature only of the synovial joint, not of the cartilaginous or the fibrous joints. So with this, we have come to the last slide and last discussion on the topic, that is classification of joints. I hope you have understood what is the fixed type of joint, what is cartilaginous type of joint, and what is synovial type of joint. So the examples are very important. So you can just remember the chart, and you yourself can list out all the joints in your body and put them in the right category. So which ones are the ones which do not move? That comes under fibrous joint. The ones which have slight movement comes under cartilaginous joint. The one which have with the capsule or the joint cavity will come under the synovial joint. And then subcategory also you can list for the synovial joint. Synovial joint, the examples are very, very important. And when it comes fibrous joint, like one of the student mentioned, the spondylosis is very important. Gomphosis is very important. Usually we just ignore that, thinking that it's a fibrous joint. There is no movement. It may not be asked. These are the type of questions that is picked for entrance exams, just to see how much in depth you have understood the topic. Superficially, all these things would have will be very easy, and you would have studied in your UG courses. But the thing is, in depth, you wouldn't have gone to understand. It is very important that you make a note of such things that come from the such topics, and it is important from exam point of view. Thanks once again. And I'm Dr. Rohini. You can subscribe to the Unacademy app and look for more topics on anatomy from me. We will discuss a lot of clinical slides and also MCQs. And I look forward to many students watching my channel. Thank you.